The manila folder landed on my desk with a soft thud. Inside were 2 resumes that would change everything. My fingers trembled slightly as I opened it, though I'd spent 15 years preparing for this moment. I'm Rachel, CEO of Nexus Technologies, and the names staring back at me belong to my mother and sister. "Colin?" I called out, my voice steady despite the thundering in my chest. My assistant appeared in the doorway, his usual crisp demeanor tinged with concern. "Yes, Rachel? Did they say how they found out about the positions?" "LinkedIn posting. They have no idea who you are." He paused. "Are you sure you want to do this?" The question transported me back to that night, 15 years ago. I was 17, clutching an acceptance letter from Stanford's computer science program. Full-ride scholarship. My dream school. "Mom!" I'd shouted, running down the stairs. "Mom, I got in!" The kitchen fell silent. Kendall, my sister, stood frozen by the counter. Mom's face was ash white. "That's impossible," Kendall had whispered. "What do you mean impossible?" I'd asked, confused by their reactions. This should have been a celebration. Mom snatched the letter from my hands. "This must be a mistake. Kendall applied to Stanford." "I applied too," I said. "Remember, I showed you my application." The silence that followed was deafening. Kendall's eyes darted between Mom and me before she finally spoke. "I need to tell you something," she said, her voice breaking. I switched our applications. I used your test scores and essays. That acceptance, it's meant for me." The world tilted sideways. "What?" "Kendall," Mom cut in, "you shouldn't have said anything." I stared at them both, uncomprehending. "Mom, she stole my application, my scores, my future. Rachel, be reasonable," Mom said, her tone dismissive. "Kendall needs Stanford more than you do. She's always been meant for bigger things. You're practical. Community college would suit you better." The words hit like physical blows. You knew she did this?" "It's already done," Mom said firmly. "Kendall deserves this opportunity. You're not going anywhere special anyway." I remember running to my room, tears burning my eyes. That night I heard them talking through the walls. "She'll get over it," Mom had said. "Rachel always settles." Back in my office, Colin was still waiting for my answer. I smoothed my silk blouse, a far cry from the second-hand clothes I'd worn back then. "Schedule the interviews," I said, "but don't let HR handle it. I want to conduct them personally." "Both of them?" Colin raised an eyebrow. "Together? No. Separate interviews. Mother first, then daughter." I smiled, though it didn't reach my eyes. "Let's see how they handle being judged on their own merits." Colin nodded, but lingered in the doorway. "Milena asked if you wanted her to sit in." "Yes," I said. "She should witness this. She was there for the aftermath, after all." I stood and walked to the floor-to-ceiling windows overlooking Seattle's skyline. 15 years of grinding, of proving them wrong. Community college while working 2 jobs, teaching myself to code between shifts, fighting my way up through a male-dominated industry that tried to dismiss me at every turn. My phone buzzed. A text from Camden, my CTO. "Quarterly numbers are in. We crushed it." I smiled, genuine this time. My company, built from nothing but determination and spite, was now valued at over $1 billion, and tomorrow the 2 people who tried to bury my dreams would walk through those doors, desperate for a job. "Colin?" I called out again. He reappeared. Yes? When you call to schedule the interviews, use my assistant's line. Don't mention my name or position. Just tell them they'll be meeting with the CEO. Of course. He paused. Rachel, what exactly are you planning? I picked up their resumes again, studying the desperate embellishments, the gaps in employment. Justice, Colin. 15 years in the making. He nodded slowly. I'll make the calls now. As Colin left, I sank back into my chair, remembering Mom's words. You're not going anywhere special anyway. I pulled out my phone and typed a quick message to Milena. Tomorrow morning, 9 a.m. You're going to want to see this. The response came immediately. Finally time? Yes, I typed back. Time to show them exactly where Nowhere Special got me. I closed the folder and straightened my desk. Tomorrow would change everything, and I intended to savor every second of it. Sleep didn't come easily that night. I found myself at my kitchen window at 3 a.m., nursing a glass of wine and remembering the years that followed the Stanford incident. The city lights below blurred as the memories rushed back. Community college wasn't just a step down, it was a free fall. I'd gone from AP classes and perfect SATs to sitting in overcrowded basic programming courses, watching my classmates struggle with concepts I'd mastered years ago. At least you're where you belong now, Kendall had said during one of her rare visits home from Stanford. She'd stopped by the diner where I worked morning shifts, ordering a latte with that practiced casual cruelty she'd perfected. How's the local college treating you? I'd wiped down her table with more force than necessary. Fine. Mom says you're taking computer classes? She'd laughed. That's cute. Still chasing that tech dream? I'd said nothing, just kept wiping tables. The regulars had started leaving me bigger tips, noticing how I'd study between customers, coding on my ancient laptop. That's where I met Milena. She was a customer service rep at a local tech firm, working her way through night classes. She'd spotted me debugging a practice exercise during my break. Your solution's elegant, she'd said, peering at my screen. But you could optimize that loop. That was the beginning of a friendship that would change everything. Milena taught me about networking, about carrying myself with confidence even when I felt like an imposter. She became my first real ally. The memory shifted to a family gathering 6 months later. I'd just landed my first coding internship, paying barely above minimum wage, but offering real experience. Rachel's got an office job now, Mom had announced to our relatives, her tone dripping with fake enthusiasm. Answering phones or something, right, dear? I'm a junior programmer, I'd corrected her. Oh, is that what they're calling it? She'd turned to my aunt. She's barely staying afloat, but you know Rachel, always settling for less. I'd excused myself to the bathroom, where Kendall found me minutes later. Don't let Mom get to you, she'd said, checking her makeup in the mirror. Not everyone can be successful. Someone has to do the small jobs. I'd gripped the sink until my knuckles turned white. How's Stanford? She'd hesitated just a fraction too long. Amazing, of course. Everything I deserved. I found out the truth 2 weeks later. A mutual friend let slip that Kendall had dropped out after 3 semesters. The stolen opportunity she'd fought so hard for. Wasted. My phone buzzed, pulling me back to the present. It was Milena. Can't sleep either? She texted. Just reviewing the past. Remember that night at Joey's bar, when you got your first real job offer? I smiled. That had been a turning point. Camden, now my CTO, had been leading a development team at a rising tech firm. He'd overheard me explaining a complex algorithm to Milena. You know your stuff, he'd said, sliding onto the bar stool next to us. Where'd you study? Self-taught, mostly. Community college. Instead of the usual dismissal, he'd asked me to solve a problem on a napkin. By closing time, I had a job offer. My phone buzzed again. It was Colin. Laura confirmed for 9 a.m., Kendall for 10:30. Perfect, I replied. Make sure security has their photos. Already done. Camden wants to know if he should be there too. I considered it. Camden had been there for my rise, had partnered with me when I decided to start my own company. He'd seen firsthand how I'd fought for every inch of progress. Tell him yes. He should see this through too. Another text from Milena. Remember what they said when you quit your job to start Nexus? How could I forget? I'd made the mistake of telling Mom and Kendall over dinner. A tech startup? Mom had scoffed. Don't be ridiculous, Rachel. You'll lose everything. You need connections to succeed in tech. Kendall had added. Real connections, not just your community college friends. They had no idea that by then I'd already secured major investors, that Camden, Milena, and a team of brilliant developers believed in my vision, that I'd learned more coding in those years of necessity than Kendall had in her brief stint at Stanford. I put down my wine glass and walked to my home office. On the wall hung my first dollar earned, next to a framed magazine cover featuring Nexus Technologies' breakthrough software launch. I'd kept my name out of the press, used only my first initial in publications. R. Meyer, the mysterious CEO. Tomorrow, that mystery would end. Tomorrow they'd learn exactly what their practical daughter had built. My phone lit up one last time. Camden. Ready to show them what settling looks like? I smiled. More than ready. I arrived at the office early, before sunrise. The security guard nodded as I crossed the lobby, my heels clicking against marble floors. Big day, Ms. Rachel. You could say that, Tom. My first hire had been a janitor who caught me sleeping at my desk during our startup days. He'd brought me coffee instead of reporting me. Now he ran our entire facilities team. That's what I built my company on, recognizing potential others missed. Camden was waiting in my office, 2 coffee cups in hand. Thought you might need this. You're here early. Wouldn't miss it. He handed me the stronger brew. He'd learned my preference during those endless coding sessions when we were building our first prototype. Remember that investor meeting, when they said we'd never make it? I laughed. Which one? The one who said I was too young, too female, or too unfocused? The one who said you lacked the educational pedigree? Camden grinned. What's he worth now, compared to you? About $1 billion less, I said, sipping my coffee. Colin appeared in the doorway, tablet in hand. They're both in the building. Your mother's in the north lobby, Kendall's in the south, as requested. Perfect. Let's not keep them waiting. I straightened my blazer. Colin, bring my mother up first. Have Kendall wait in the ground floor conference room. I watched on the security feed as Colin greeted my mother. She'd aged, but still carried herself with that same air of superiority. Her clothes, though, told a different story, slightly worn, last season's style. Mrs. Meyer? Colin's voice came through clearly. Please follow me. Milena joined me in my office. Ready? I've been ready for 15 years. We watched through the one-way glass as Colin led my mother into the waiting area. She sat stiffly, clutching her purse, practicing what looked like a forced smile. Rachel, Milena said softly, remember when we were studying for your certification exam, in that tiny studio apartment? I did. I'd been working 2 jobs, coding all night. Milena would bring takeout, quiz me on algorithms while I scarfed down cold noodles. You said something that night, she continued. You said you weren't doing this for revenge. You were doing it to prove them wrong about what you could become. Maybe it's both. The intercom buzzed. Colin's voice. Rachel? She's ready. I took a deep breath. Send her in. The door opened, and my mother walked in. For a moment she didn't recognize me. Her eyes were fixed on the floor, that practiced smile plastered on her face. Mrs. Meyer? I said softly. Please, have a seat. She looked up. The smile froze, then cracked. Her purse slipped from her fingers, hitting the carpet with a dull thud. Rachel? Hello, Mom. I gestured to the chair across from my desk. We should talk about your application. She didn't move. Her eyes darted around my office, the awards on the walls, the city view, the elegant furniture. This is... You're... the CEO? Yes. I kept my voice level. Please sit. She sank into the chair, her facade crumbling. I didn't know. We had no idea. That's by design. I opened her resume on my tablet. Let's discuss your qualifications. You're applying for an administrative position. Rachel, please. It's Ms. Meyer in this office, Mom. Or did you forget how to show proper respect in a professional setting? Color flooded her cheeks. You can't be serious. I'm always serious about my company. I scrolled through her resume. Interesting gap here between 2018 and 2020. Care to explain? You know what happened? The divorce, the downsizing. Actually, I don't know. We haven't spoken in, 5 years? I looked up. Not since you told the Wilsons I was wasting my potential at some little computer company. Milena stepped forward. Mrs. Meyer, I'm Milena Bradley, head of HR. We take our hiring process very seriously here. Mom's eyes narrowed. Milena? The girl from the diner. The woman who helped build this company, I corrected. Unlike some people, she saw potential where others saw... What was your word? Ah, yes. Settling. Rachel, I was trying to protect you. From what? Success? Independence? Or just from outshining your precious Kendall? I closed her resume. Speaking of whom, she should be getting anxious downstairs. Colin? Yes, Rachel? Please show Mrs. Meyer out and send up my sister. Mom stood, shaking. You're enjoying this, aren't you? I met her eyes. No more than you enjoyed watching me struggle. The difference is, I earned my position to judge. As Colin led her out, Camden stepped in. One down. I straightened my desk. One to go. And something tells me Kendall's interview will be even more interesting. The security feed showed my mother stumbling into the lobby, fumbling for her phone. Kendall answered on the first ring. I could see her pacing in the conference room downstairs. Cut the audio feed, I told Colin. Let them have their moment. While they talked, I pulled up Kendall's resume. 3 jobs in 2 years, each ending mysteriously. The Stanford education she'd stolen from me was conspicuously absent. She's on her way up, Colin announced. Camden leaned against the wall. Want me to leave? No. You were there when she tried to sabotage our first contract. I'd never told him it was my sister who'd spread rumors about our company's stability to potential clients. He'd just helped me fight back harder. The door opened. Kendall walked in with the same confident stride she'd always had, though her designer outfit couldn't hide how thin she'd become. She froze mid-step when she saw me. Holy shit, she whispered. Language, Kendall. This is a professional environment. I smiled. Please, sit. She didn't. Mom just called. She said, but I didn't believe. That your little sister runs the company you're begging to work for? I gestured to the chair again. Sit down. We have a lot to discuss. She sat, her movements stiff. Rachel, I can explain. Explain what? The stolen application? The sabotage attempts? Or maybe your latest job termination? I held up her resume. Interesting how you left out the reasons for leaving your last 3 positions. You've been tracking me? No need. Your failures made the industry newsletters. I pulled up an article on my tablet. Rising sales director terminated for ethical violations. That was you, wasn't it? Her face reddened. That was a misunderstanding. Like Stanford was a misunderstanding? I kept my voice calm. Tell me, how long did you last there? 3 semesters? You don't understand what it was like. Kendall's composure cracked. The pressure, the expectations, the actual work. I stood, walking to my window. You know, I used to wonder how you managed to fail with every advantage you stole from me, but now I get it. You never learned to earn anything. That's not fair. Fair? I turned back to her. Let's talk about fair. While you were partying at Stanford, I was coding between waitressing shifts. While you were dropping out, I was building my first app. And while you were getting fired for cutting corners, I was building this company from nothing. Camden stepped forward. Ms. Meyer, should I pull up the records of the contract interference? Kendall's eyes widened. You knew about that. We knew. I sat back down. Just like we knew about the calls you made to our early investors, spreading lies about our stability. I needed the job they were offering. Kendall's voice rose. You don't know what it's like to struggle. To struggle? Milena cut in sharply. I watched your sister sleep on my couch because she couldn't afford rent between coding boot camps. Where were you then? Having lunch with Mom, I answered for her, laughing about how I was wasting my time with computers. Tears welled in Kendall's eyes. Rachel, please, I need this job. I'll do anything. That's the problem. I opened my laptop. You've always been willing to do anything. Lie, cheat, steal, except actually work for what you want. I've changed, she whispered. Have you? I pulled up a final document. Because according to your reference check, you tried to take credit for a colleague's project just last month. Old habits die hard, don't they? The fight seemed to drain out of her. What are you going to do? Nothing. I closed my laptop. You've done it all to yourself. Every choice, every shortcut, every betrayal led you right here, begging for a job from the sister you tried to destroy. Mom was right, Kendall said bitterly. You've turned cold. No, I've turned successful. There's a difference. I pressed the intercom. Colin, please escort my sister out, and make sure security has both their photos. They're not to be allowed back in the building. As Colin led Kendall to the door, I called out. Oh, and Kendall, that scholarship you stole, I matched it last year, created a fund for underprivileged students, 10 full rides to Stanford's computer science program. Guess what I named it? She turned, face pale. The Second Chance Scholarship, because everyone deserves one, even if some people waste theirs. The door closed behind them. Camden whistled low. Brutal. But necessary, Milena added. I stared at the door, feeling lighter than I had in years. Send the security footage to my private server, Colin, and clear my schedule for the rest of the day. Planning to celebrate? Camden asked. No. I picked up my phone, seeing the missed calls from my mother already piling up. Planning to finally move forward? Revenge might be sweet, but success? I smiled. Success is sweeter. The next morning, my phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Texts, calls, emails, all from numbers I'd blocked years ago. Extended family, old neighbors, even my father who'd stayed silent during the whole Stanford debacle. Your mother's on line 3, Colin announced through the intercom. Again. Keep screening the calls. I focused on my laptop, reviewing our latest acquisition proposal. How many times is that now? 17 since yesterday. Kendall's tried 12 times. A knock on my door interrupted us. Milena entered, holding a tablet. You need to see this. She handed me the device. On it was a local business blog post. Tech CEO's family drama exposed, inside the Meyer sisters' corporate showdown. It's going viral, Milena said. Your mother must have talked to someone. I skimmed the article. It painted me as the vindictive sister, twisting the narrative into something ugly. Classic mom, always controlling the story. Rachel? Camden appeared in the doorway. The board's calling an emergency meeting. Of course they were. Nothing scared investors like family drama. I straightened my jacket and grabbed my presentation folder. Time to face the music. The boardroom was tense when I entered. 8 pairs of eyes watched me take my seat at the head of the table. Ms. Meyer, Harrison, our lead investor, began. Care to explain this morning's headlines? I opened my folder calmly. Actually, I'd prefer to discuss our Q3 projections first. We're up 47% from last year. Rachel, he said firmly, this is serious. Your personal life has nothing to do with my ability to run this company. I met his gaze. But since you're concerned, let me be clear. Yes, I interviewed my mother and sister for positions they were grossly unqualified for. Yes, I rejected them. And yes, they're now trying to spin it into a scandal. It's not just about the interviews. Another board member cut in. Your sister is claiming you built this company on stolen ideas. I laughed. Actually laughed. Camden, would you like to address that? Camden stood, distributing folders to the board. These are the original patents for our core technology. Note the dates. And these... He dropped another stack of papers. Are Ms. Meyer's coding commits from the early days. Every line of our foundation was written by her, usually between midnight and 4 a.m. While working 2 jobs, Milena added from the doorway. I have the timesheets to prove it. Harrison flipped through the documents. And the Stanford situation they're talking about is exactly why I created the Second Chance Scholarship, I said smoothly, to ensure other talented students don't lose opportunities to family sabotage. The room fell quiet as they processed this. Finally, Harrison spoke again. You've prepared for this day, haven't you? For 15 years. I pulled up our latest project specs on the room screens. Now, about those Q3 numbers. The meeting ended 2 hours later. As the board filed out, Harrison lingered. You know, he said, when we first invested, some thought you were too young, too inexperienced. I'll bet on you anyway. Want to know why? My brilliant business plan. Your eyes. You had the look of someone who'd fought for everything they had. He smiled. Still do. Don't lose that. After he left, I found Colin waiting at my office. Your father's in the lobby, he said quietly. Should I send him away? I considered it. Dad had never actively participated in my humiliation, but he'd never stopped it either. His silence had been its own kind of betrayal. What's he saying? That he's proud of you, that he should have spoken up years ago. My throat tightened. Send him up. When my father walked in, he looked older than I remembered, greyer, smaller somehow. Rachel, he said softly, you've done well for yourself. No thanks to you. He nodded, accepting the hit. I know. I was a coward, watched your mother and sister tear you down, and I said nothing. Why are you here, Dad? To apologize, and to warn you. Your mother's talking about legal action, some nonsense about emotional distress. I smiled. Let her try. I have 15 years of documented harassment and interference. Plus, she signed our standard non-disclosure agreement before her interview. You really did think of everything. I had to. I met his eyes. No one else was going to protect me. He flinched. You're right, but Rachel, don't let this define you forever. You've won. More than won. Maybe it's time to... To what? Forgive and forget? To be free of them. Really free. He turned to leave, then paused. By the way, I saw your scholarship program. 10 full rides to Stanford? Yes. Make it 11. He pulled out a check. Consider it 15 years of missed birthday presents. After he left, I stared at the check for a long time. Then, I picked up my phone and called the Scholarship Foundation. Sometimes revenge isn't just about getting even. Sometimes it's about making sure no one else has to fight as hard as you did. The media storm hit full force by the end of the week. I was in a product development meeting when Colin burst in. Rachel, you need to see this. He turned on the wall-mounted TV, flipping to a local news channel. There was my mother, perfectly coiffed despite everything, sitting for an interview. The caption read, Mother claims tech, CEO daughter's vengeful campaign, destroyed family. Turn it up, I said quietly. My daughter, Mom was saying, dabbing at dry eyes with a tissue, has harbored this resentment for years. She built her entire company just to humiliate us. What kind of person does that to their own family? Camden muted the TV. Want me to release those recordings from the interviews? Not yet. I checked my phone. 3 missed calls from the PR team. Let's see how deep she wants to dig this hole. Milena appeared in the doorway. Kendall's outside. Security stopped her, but she's making a scene. I walked to the window. Sure enough, my sister was in the plaza below, waving what looked like old photos at gathering reporters. Enough! I pressed the intercom. Colin, call building security. Have them clear the plaza, and get our PR team up here now. Within an hour, my office was filled with crisis managers and lawyers. They talked over each other, suggesting statements and strategies. Stop, I said finally. Just stop. I'm handling this my way. Ms. Meyer, our head of PR protested. We need to control the narrative. The narrative? I stood. Let me tell you about narratives. For 15 years they controlled the story. Poor Kendall, who needed that scholarship more. Practical Rachel, who should be grateful for community college. The dutiful daughter who just couldn't measure up. I walked to my desk and pulled out a thick file. This is my narrative. I dropped it on the conference table. Every email, every voicemail, every attempt to sabotage my career, dating back to the Stanford incident, all documented, all time-stamped. The lawyers scrambled for the file. There's more, Camden added, sliding over a USB drive. Security footage from the interviews. Shows everything. And this, Milena said, producing another folder, Records of their attempts to interfere with company contracts, plus the NDAs they signed before their interviews. The PR team fell silent. "So," I said calmly, "here's what's going to happen. I'm going to hold a press conference. One time, one story, my truth. After that, anyone who continues this smear campaign will face legal action." "The press is already calling it an abuse of power," someone pointed out. "Power?" I laughed. "Let me show you power." I pulled up our company's charitable giving records on the main screen. Last year alone, we funded 50 women in STEM scholarships, built 3 tech training centers in underserved communities, launched a coding program for foster kids. I turned to face the room. That's power, using success to open doors for others, not slamming them shut like they tried to do to me. The PR team was scribbling frantically now. "Schedule the press conference," I told Colin, "and make sure they're all there. Mom, Kendall, every relative who's been running to the media. Front row seats." "When?" I checked my calendar. "Tomorrow, 9 a.m. Enough time for them to worry about what I might say." As the team filed out, Camden lingered. "You're really going to tell everything?" "Not everything." I smiled. "Just enough to make them realize how much worse it could be if they keep pushing." That evening, as I prepared my statement, my father called. "I saw your mother's interview," he said. "Everyone did." "Rachel," he paused. "Whatever you're planning for tomorrow, remember something. The best revenge isn't about destroying your enemies. It's about outshining them so completely they become irrelevant." I looked at the speech on my screen, at the devastating details I'd planned to reveal. "Maybe you're right," I said finally. After we hung up, I deleted the document and started fresh. Instead of exposing their lies, I'd tell my truth. About a girl who turned rejection into motivation, who built something meaningful, not despite her family's betrayal, but because of it. My phone buzzed with a text from Milena. "Ready for tomorrow?" "Getting there," I replied, "but I'm changing the script." "How so?" I thought about the scholarship students I'd met last week, their bright eyes, their determination, their gratitude for the chance my family had tried to deny me. "I'm going to thank them," I wrote back. "Thank them? For what?" "For teaching me the difference between success and revenge, for showing me that the best response to cruelty is to create opportunity for others." "They won't understand that," Milena texted. "No," I agreed, "but everyone else will." I turned back to my computer and began to write. Tomorrow, I'd tell my story. Not as a victim seeking vengeance, but as a founder who turned pain into purpose. Let them try to spin that. The auditorium was packed. Camera flashes popped like lightning as I took the stage, my heels clicking against hardwood. In the front row, exactly where I'd placed them, sat my mother and sister, their faces set in practiced expressions of concern. Colin handed me a glass of water. "They're all here. Every major network." I nodded, adjusting the microphone. "Good morning. Thank you for coming." The room fell silent. There's been a lot of speculation about recent events at Nexus Technologies, about interviews conducted, opportunities denied, and most of all, about family. I paused, meeting my mother's gaze. "So, let me tell you a story about opportunity." Kendall shifted uncomfortably in her seat. 15 years ago, I was accepted to Stanford's computer science program, full scholarship. It was my dream, earned through years of hard work, perfect test scores, and countless late nights coding. The reporters' pens scratched frantically. That Opportunity was taken from me, not by fate or circumstance, but by people who decided I didn't deserve it. I smiled. They were right, in a way. I deserved something better. Mom's practiced concern cracked slightly. Instead of Stanford, I went to community college, worked as a waitress, taught myself to code between serving coffee and clearing tables. And there, in that diner, I learned something Stanford never could have taught me. I stepped away from the podium, addressing the room directly. I learned that success isn't about where you start. It's about how far you're willing to go. Every rejection, every dismissal, every person who said I was settling just gave me more fuel. Camden stood at the back, grinning. Last year, Nexus Technologies launched the Second Chance Scholarship, 10 full rides to Stanford's computer science program, now 11, thanks to a recent donation. But today, I'm announcing something bigger. I clicked a remote and the screen behind me lit up. The Nexus Foundation for Tech Innovation, a $50 million initiative to build technology training centers in underserved communities, to fund startups led by overlooked founders, to ensure that no one with talent and drive gets pushed aside because they don't fit someone else's idea of success. Gasps rippled through the audience. My mother's face had gone pale. And the first center, I continued, will be built right here in Seattle, on the site of the diner where I worked, where I learned that sometimes the best revenge is proving everyone wrong by helping others succeed. A reporter's hand shot up. Ms. Meyer, your mother claims— My mother, I interrupted smoothly, taught me an invaluable lesson about power. Those who abuse it, lose it. Those who share it, multiply it. More hands raised. I pointed to a young reporter in the back. Your sister accused you of building your company solely for revenge. How do you respond? I laughed. Look around this room, at our employees, our scholarship recipients, the lives we've changed. Does this look like revenge? This is redemption. Kendall stood abruptly, heading for the exit. Mom remained frozen in her seat. One final announcement, I said. To the young woman who lost her Stanford scholarship last week due to family financial troubles, check your email. You're our newest second chance scholar. The room erupted in applause. As it died down, I delivered my final blow. Someone once told me I wasn't going anywhere special. They were wrong. I was going everywhere they said I couldn't, and I'm holding the door open behind me. The press conference ended in a flurry of questions and camera flashes. As security cleared the room, my mother approached the stage. Rachel, she said, her voice shaking, that scholarship fund, you named it. Second chance, I finished. Ironic, isn't it? You took my first chance, so I created thousands more. I never meant— Yes, you did. I gathered my papers. But thank you. Your cruelty built something beautiful. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a foundation to run. Colin appeared at my side. Rachel, the new scholar is here, the one you just announced. Send her in. A young woman entered, tears streaming down her face. Ms. Meyer, I can't believe— My family, they said college wasn't for people like me. People like us, I corrected, stepping down from the stage. Come on, let me show you around your new future. As we walked out, I caught my mother's reflection in the glass doors. She stood alone in the empty auditorium, watching her carefully constructed narrative crumble around her. But I didn't look back. I had scholarships to award, doors to open, lives to change. Sometimes the best revenge isn't about getting even. It's about getting better. And bringing others with you. The sun was setting when I finally returned to my office, casting long shadows across the city skyline. My phone hadn't stopped buzzing since the press conference. Messages of support, media requests, and most surprisingly, apologies from long silent relatives. "Rachel?" Colin knocked softly. "There's someone here to see you." "I'm done with visitors today." "It's the diner owner. Margaret." My heart stopped. Margaret! The woman who let me study during slow shifts, who'd slipped me extra food when I could barely afford rent. "Send her in." She looked exactly the same. Silver hair in a neat bun, flour-dusted apron, kind eyes that had seen too much of life to judge. "Look at you," she said, spreading her arms. My little coding waitress all grown up. I hugged her tight, breathing in the familiar scent of coffee and fresh bread. "Margaret, I'm so sorry I didn't tell you about buying the property." "Hush." She pulled back, holding my shoulders. "I came to thank you. That diner, it's been struggling. I was going to lose it anyway, but turning it into something that helps kids like you that's better than anything I could have done with it. We're not tearing it down," I said quickly. "The training center will incorporate the diner. Keep it running. Keep you in charge. Those kids need somewhere to study, right?" She wiped her eyes. "You always were too smart for your own good." A knock interrupted us. Milena entered with a tablet. "Sorry, but you need to see this. Your mother's posted something online." My stomach tightened as I took the tablet, but instead of another attack, I found a public apology. Long, detailed, raw. "I let pride and favoritism blind me," I read aloud. "I damaged not just one daughter, but both. Rachel succeeded not because of me, but in spite of me. Kendall failed not because of her potential, but because I never let her find it. I'm sorry." "Keep reading," Milena urged. "To honor my daughter's example, I'm selling my house and donating the proceeds to the Nexus Foundation. It's time to stop tearing down and start building up." Margaret squeezed my hand. "People can surprise you. They can," I agreed, thinking of my father's donation, of Kendall's silence after the press conference. "But actions matter more than words." Camden appeared in the doorway. "Speaking of actions, the first scholarship applications are flooding in. Want to help review them?" "Actually," I said, "I have a better idea. Margaret, how would you like to join our scholarship committee? You spotted my potential when nobody else did." She beamed. "I'd be honored." We spent the evening reviewing applications together. Margaret, Milena, Camden, Colin, and me. Ordering takeout, sharing stories, finding diamonds in the rough, just like others had once found me. My phone buzzed with a text from Kendall. "Can we talk? Not about jobs of the past, about the future." I showed the message to Milena. "What do you think?" "I think," she said carefully, "that success includes knowing when to extend the same grace you wished you'd received." I typed back, "Coffee tomorrow, at Margaret's Diner. Let's start fresh." "Look at this one," Camden said, holding up an application. "Single mom, teaching herself to code between night shifts. Reminds me of someone." I took the application, reading the personal essay. The words could have been mine from 15 years ago. Dreams, determination, desperation for a chance. Full ride, I decided, and an internship offer. "You can't save everyone," Colin cautioned. "No?" I agreed. "But we can open the door. They'll save themselves." Margaret stood, brushing off her apron. "Well, I should head back. Got pies to bake for tomorrow." "Wait." I grabbed my coat. "I'll walk you. Maybe I could help with the baking? Like old times." She smiled. Thought you were too important for that now? Never. I turned to the others. Coming. Margaret's pie-making lessons are legendary. As we walked through the quiet streets to the diner, I felt lighter than I had in years. The weight of revenge had lifted, replaced by something better. Purpose. My phone buzzed one last time. A message from Mom. The house sells next week. The foundation will have the money by month's end. I know it doesn't fix the past, but maybe it helps build the future. I showed Margaret the message. Well, she said, unlocking the diner door. Looks like everyone's getting a second chance. No, I corrected, breathing in the familiar scent of home. We're creating new chances for everyone. The bell chimed as we entered, and I hung my CEO blazer next to Margaret's spare apron. Time to get my hands dirty again. This time, building something sweeter than revenge. Sometimes the best endings aren't about closing doors, but opening new ones, and keeping them open for others to follow.
I'm Jane, and I had just turned 28 when I thought I had met the love of my life, Mike. Everything unfolded so quickly. We were married within a year of our first meeting. Mike, an accountant with a tall frame and a laugh that could brighten any room, complemented my career in digital marketing. I love painting on weekends and have always been a planner. We seemed to balance each other perfectly, or so I thought. The day after our wedding, our living room was a delightful mess, overflowing with wrapped gifts and cards, a beautiful chaos that reflected our celebration. Just then, Mike's parents, Carol and Dave, unexpectedly dropped by. I hadn't had much chance to get to know them since our wedding had come together so fast, but they appeared perfectly normal. As we began to open gifts, I noticed Carol and Dave were more than a little curious about what we were unwrapping. Is that a crystal vase? Carol asked, picking up a shimmering piece that my Aunt Linda had given us. She turned it over in her hands, her eyes sparkling with interest. Yeah, it's from my Aunt Linda. Pretty, isn't it? I replied, hoping to steer her attention away from claiming it. But before I knew it, Carol had set the vase aside in a separate pile. I think we can find a good place for this at our house, she said casually. Mike, engrossed in untangling a set of fancy kitchen gadgets from his cousin, didn't seem to notice. I shot him a pleading look, hoping he would intervene. Mom, that's our wedding gift, Mike finally said with an easy smile, as if it were all a big joke. Oh, come on, it'll just gather dust here. We'll use it, Dave chimed in, wrapping an arm around Carol. Besides, you two are young, you'll get plenty more gifts over the years. I tried to laugh along, but it felt off. Actually, I think it would look great in our foyer, I said, attempting to reclaim it without making a scene. Carol glanced at me, her expression a mix of surprise and annoyance. Jane, you need to learn to share. We're family now, and families help each other out, she said firmly, as if imparting some kind of lesson. Catching the rising tension, Mike quickly jumped in. Let's not worry about this now. We've got plenty of gifts, right, Jane? I nodded, biting back my frustration. Yet as they continued to sift through the gifts, setting aside a few choice items for themselves, that uncomfortable feeling settled deeper in my stomach. It felt like I was watching strangers claim pieces of my life as their own, and Mike simply let it happen. Our first year of marriage flew by, and before I knew it, our anniversary had arrived. I wanted to make it special, a true celebration of us. So I booked a table at Chez Louis, a cozy little spot we both loved. I thought it would be romantic to invite Mike's parents to join us, wanting to show them they were important to us. When we arrived at the restaurant, Carol and Dave were already seated, menus in hand. This place is fancy, Carol remarked, eyeing the chandeliers above. Mike squeezed my hand under the table, a silent thank you for organizing the evening. As the waiter approached, I ordered salmon, Mike's favorite, and noticed Carol's eyes scanning the menu for the most expensive items. We'll have the lobster in the filet mignon, she declared, pointing at the priciest options without a second thought. Why not throw in a bottle of your best wine? Dave added, winking at the waiter. I felt my smile stiffen. Quite the celebration, huh? I tried to keep my tone light. It's a special night, Mike said with a shrug. Let's not think about the cost. While the conversation was generally light-hearted, I couldn't shake the feeling that Carol and Dave were indulging like it was their last meal, almost oblivious to the hefty bill that would soon arrive. As we ate, I was consumed by a sense of being taken advantage of. It wasn't about the money, not really, it was the principle. This was our anniversary, and it felt as if it was being hijacked. When the check finally came, I braced myself for the awkward moment ahead. I noticed Mike's eyes widen for a moment, but he quickly regained his composure and handed his card to the waiter. As we left the restaurant, Carol linked her arm through mine. You know, Jane, this was lovely. We should do it again next year, she said, a satisfied smile on her face. With Thanksgiving approaching, the holiday season was just around the corner. Mike and I had started decorating our home, blending warm fall colors with early Christmas cheer. It felt cozy, like a place you'd want to return to after a long day. One evening, while we were stringing lights around the living room windows, Mike's phone pinged with a message. He read it and chuckled. Oh, my parents are ahead of the game. They've already sent their Christmas wish list. I paused, untangling a set of lights, and looked up. A wish list. Yeah, they send one every year. It helps with shopping, he explained, scrolling through his phone. Curiosity got the best of me. So, what's on this famous list? Mike hesitated for a moment before handing me his phone. The list was extensive, top-tier electronics, designer clothes, luxury items that seemed completely unnecessary. I scrolled through in disbelief. They can't be serious, I exclaimed. This is a lot. Taking back his phone, Mike shrugged. They like the good stuff. What can I say? I was at a loss for words. A knot formed in the pit of my stomach. Mike's birthday was also approaching, and I had been eagerly planning to gift him the watch he had been eyeing for months. Now, it felt as if any gift I gave would be overshadowed by this extravagant list. When it came to making our own lists, I couldn't shake the feeling of pettiness. Maybe we should just ask for charitable donations in our name, I suggested half-heartedly. Mike laughed. Good one. But seriously, what do you want? You need a new laptop, right? As the holidays rolled around, I bought Carol and Dave a nice coffee maker, not too fancy but practical. In return, they gave me a set of scented candles. They were lovely, but the contrast was stark. I didn't say anything. Mike seemed pleased with the expensive drone they gifted him, but the unspoken rule was clear. We were expected to give lavishly and receive modestly. It didn't feel right, but I held my tongue, wrapping gifts and plastering a smile on my face for the holidays. Inside, though, I began to tally the costs, not just in dollars, but in the emotional toll it was taking on me. One day, while staring at my computer screen at work, an email notification popped up. It was my quarterly bonus, bigger than I had anticipated. My first thought was to do something meaningful with it, something for Mike and me. So, I booked us a trip to Paris. We had talked about going since we met, and it felt like the perfect moment to make that dream a reality. That night, as we sat down for dinner, I couldn't wait to share the news. I excitedly told Mike about the surprise trip, and his face lit up in a way I had never seen before. Paris. Really, babe? That's amazing, he exclaimed, jumping up to kiss me. I was basking in the joy of the moment when his phone rang. It was his mom. I could see the change in his expression immediately. Yeah, she booked us a trip to Paris, he said into the phone, and I instantly regretted not asking him to keep it quiet for a little while longer. As he listened, his enthusiasm slowly waned. I know, you've always wanted to go. He trailed off, looking at me with a pained expression. My heart sank. After hanging up, a heavy silence enveloped us. They want to come with us, he said finally, almost as if seeking my approval. I froze, my fork hovering midair. To Paris with us? I asked, trying to keep my voice steady. Yeah, they said they've never been and have always wanted to go, Mike explained, running a hand through his hair. I think we should take them. Suddenly, the room felt too small. It's supposed to be for us, Mike, our trip, I said, feeling the tightness in my chest. He didn't respond right away. I know, but they're getting older, and I feel bad. They've done so much for me. I thought about all the one-sided gift exchanges, the anniversary dinners, and every little thing that had accumulated over the past year. But this is our time, I insisted, my voice firm. We can plan a trip with them another time. This bonus is for us. Mike let out a deep, frustrated sigh. They won't understand that. You know how they are. And you know how hard I've worked for this. I spoke the words like stones lodged in my throat. I want us to enjoy it together, just us, like we planned. After a moment of silence, he finally relented. Okay, we'll tell them some other time might work better. But when the moment came to break the news, Mike hesitated. Look, maybe we can all go together next year, he suggested, but Carol was having none of it. Why next year? We can afford it now, she retorted over the speakerphone, her voice tinged with disappointment. I could no longer hold back my frustration. Because this trip is for us, Carol. Mike and I need this time together, I said, my voice rising. There was a pause before she replied, well, that's very selfish of you, Jane. Very selfish indeed. After the call, the air between Mike and me was thick with tension. I could tell he was torn, but I was resolute. Paris was meant to be a dream trip for just the two of us, and I wouldn't let that dream slip away. In the following days, Mike became a shadow in his own home, leaving early for work and returning late. Our conversations dwindled to monosyllables. Dinner's in the oven, I would call out when I heard the garage door open, my voice echoing off the empty walls. Thanks, he'd reply, the word hanging between us like a ghost. I missed him, missed us. I longed for the easy days when we would dream together on the couch, our plans and laughter intertwined. I yearned to reach out to him, to break through the invisible barrier that had formed after our argument about Paris. But every attempt felt like trying to speak through thick glass. I could see him, but I couldn't connect. One particularly difficult evening, I found myself sitting across from Mike at the dinner table, the sound of his fork scraping against the plate cutting through the heavy silence. I cleared my throat. Mike, this can't go on, I began, my voice barely above a whisper, fearful of shattering the fragile peace between us. We need to talk about what happened. We can't let this silence become our new normal. Mike continued eating, his expression unreadable, until he finally set down his fork. It was a sign I had his attention, even if just for a moment. What do you want me to say, Jane? He asked, a hint of wariness seeping through his words. I want to understand why you're taking this so hard. It feels like you're choosing them over me, I replied, hurt evident in my tone. He sighed, folding his hands in front of him. They're my parents, Jane. They've always dreamed of going to Paris. And what about our dreams? I pressed, frustration bubbling up inside me. What about our plans? Mike ran a hand through his hair, a gesture of exasperation that had become all too familiar. I know, he said, and for a brief moment, I caught a glimpse of the man I married, conflicted and torn, but not indifferent. It's just, they've always been there for me. I feel obligated. But where does that leave us, Mike? I leaned forward, desperate to catch his eye. What about our marriage? He hesitated, and in that pause, fear washed over me. What if we weren't as solid as I had believed? What if the foundation we built was more like sand, easily eroded by the tide of his parents' needs? It's supposed to be us against the world, Mike, not me against you and them, I said quietly, my voice steady despite the emotions swelling inside me. He looked at me, really looked at me, and I could see the conflict warring within him. I know, Jane. I just don't know how to make everyone happy. And then it hit me with sudden clarity. That's just it. We can't always make everyone happy, but we made vows to each other, Mike. Doesn't that count for something? He nodded slowly, his gaze lingering on the table before finally meeting mine. It does. It counts for a lot. The rest of the meal passed in contemplative silence, a welcome change from the strained quiet that had become our norm. It felt as if my words had planted a seed, or perhaps nurtured one that had been dormant within Mike all along. As the morning sun poured in through the windows, I noticed that the warmth it usually brought seemed to have no place in our home today. I woke up to an eerie stillness. The other side of the bed lay untouched from the night before, and the emptiness of the house felt like a heavy blanket, suffocating in its silence. Rubbing the sleep from my eyes, I reached for my phone, expecting the usual void of messages that had taken residence in our home. Instead, my screen lit up with a flood of notifications, each one from my bank. A lump formed in my throat as I scanned the details. Multiple transactions, including airline tickets and hotel bookings in Paris, all made while I was asleep. The timestamps on the emails revealed that the flight had left hours ago. Mike and his parents were already on their way to Paris, using my hard-earned bonus to fund a trip I was meant to be on. Disbelief morphed into anger, and then a crushing sense of betrayal settled in. I sat there, the phone heavy in my hand, as the reality sank in. Mike had access to my account. I had trusted him implicitly, never imagining he would betray that trust. Yet here it was, stark in black and white, a digital paper trail of deceit. I couldn't breathe, couldn't think. The one person I had believed would stand by me had chosen his own comfort over a relationship. Memories flooded back, reminding me of all the little signs I had brushed aside, all the excuses I had made for him and for us. With trembling fingers, I dialed his number, fully aware he wouldn't answer, not with the time difference and not with my previous ultimatum ringing in his ears. "Mike," I began, only to be met by the cheerful beep of his voicemail, which felt almost mocking. "I saw the charges. You took your parents to Paris with my bonus. I don't even know what to say, but I hope it's worth it. I hope it's worth everything." The house felt even emptier after the call, the walls closing in on me under the weight of everything left unsaid, and now perhaps never to be spoken. I sat at the kitchen table, the silence a stark contrast to the chaos raging within me. They had left just like that, with no regard for me or the life we were supposed to be building together. I canceled the hotel rooms and the return flights, severing every piece of the trip tied to my finances. With each cancellation, I felt fragments of my old life slipping away, the future I had envisioned evaporating before my eyes. By the time I finished, there was nothing left to do but act. I contacted the bank and revoked Mike's access to my accounts, feeling the terrifying yet liberating finality with each click. The man I had married, the family I had tried to be a part of, they were all strangers now. Strangers who had used me, seeing my generosity as something to exploit rather than cherish. I packed my bags with a robotic efficiency, each item a reminder of a dream I had to put away. There was no going back from this. No gentle words or apologies could mend the rift his betrayal had caused. Mike had chosen his path, and in doing so, he had set me on mine. The ring I had once worn with pride lay cold and heavy in my palm. I set it down on the counter, its sparkle mocking me in the morning light. With one last look at the life I was leaving behind, I closed the door on the house that had never truly felt like home. It was late afternoon when I finally drove away, my car packed with clothes and essentials, a stark reminder of the sudden turn my life had taken. As I hit the road, messages began to flood in, one from Mike, several from his mother. I pulled over to read the messages, knowing they would only fuel my resolve. Mike's message flashed on the screen. "Jane, please, we need to talk about this. Can't we just discuss it?" The simplicity of his words felt almost insulting. I started to type a response but stopped, realizing that no words could bridge the chasm between us. His mother's messages were a confusing mix of anger and concern. "What's going on? Why have you canceled our rooms? Call me." I could picture her sitting in a Paris cafe, expecting luxury but facing complications. Frustrated, I turned my phone off. They were in the middle of a trip funded by deceit. They could figure it out. My first stop was the bank. I needed to ensure my finances were completely secure. The bank manager, a middle-aged woman with a gentle demeanor, greeted me. "I need to make sure all my accounts are locked down. My husband won't have access anymore," I explained, my voice steady despite the emotions churning within me. "Of course," she nodded, offering a sympathetic smile. "Let's make sure you're protected." By the time I left the bank, my accounts were secure, and a new sense of determination settled within me. I drove to my sister's house, the only place I felt safe. She opened the door before I could even knock. "Jane, I've been so worried," she said, pulling me into a hug. I allowed myself a moment to be held, letting the weight of my reality be shared. "I can't believe he would do this to you," she said as we sat down at her kitchen table. "You deserve so much better." I nodded, swallowing hard against the lump in my throat. "I do, and that's why I'm not going back. I've canceled everything. I've left the house. I'm done." Sarah reached across the table, squeezing my hand. "Good for you. What's your plan now?" I looked around the familiar room, feeling the first twinges of relief. "I'm not sure yet, but I'm starting with a divorce. I can't stay married to someone who has so little respect for me." Her face was a mix of anger and pride. "I'll support you however I can. Do you need a lawyer?" "I'll find one," I said, my voice growing firmer with each word. "Need someone who doesn't know Mike or his family. I need this cut clean." The conversation shifted as Sarah helped me unpack my card and plan the next few days. There was a strange comfort in the mundane tasks, a grounding in the midst of chaos. I was standing in her kitchen, a mug of coffee warming my hands, when my phone vibrated persistently. It was Mike again. "Jane, we need to talk. I'm sorry. I miss you, and I think we can work things out." His text was a blend of apology and plea. I sighed, feeling the same rehearse "I'm sorry" becoming a threadbare blanket that offered no comfort. "Not this time, Mike. I muttered under my breath, typing a response that left no room for ambiguity. There's nothing left to discuss. Please respect my decision. I could almost hear his desperation in the silence that followed, but it wasn't enough to make me reconsider, not anymore. My resolve was tested further a few days later when Mike's parents made a dramatic appearance at my sister's doorstep. Their faces twisted in anger as they barged past Sarah, who stood wide-eyed at the door. "You've got some nerve, Jane," his mother exclaimed, her voice shrill. "You ruined our family vacation. You're just a greedy, selfish woman." Sarah stepped in front of me, protective. "That's enough. You're not going to come into my house and insult my sister." The argument escalated, drawing the attention of neighbors peeking out from their windows. I was sure someone would call the police. It ended with Sarah threatening to do just that if they didn't leave. The departure left a sour air that lingered long after they were gone. But amidst the chaos, a realization settled within me. I was truly done. The divorce process felt like a cold legal ballet, and I danced my part, signing papers and nodding through explanations of settlements and divisions. Yet with each stroke of the pen, I felt chains breaking and tethers loosening. And then it was over. I stood outside the courthouse, a free woman. The air was crisp, a gentle wind playing with the loose strands of my hair. Sarah, be tight, her support unwavering. "You did it, Jane," she whispered, pride evident in her voice. I had stood up to the selfishness that tried to claim me, resisting the manipulation that sought to bind me. I turned away from the courthouse, away from a past that no longer held me. The messages from Mike continued for a while, a mix of apologies, bargaining, and eventually anger. But they went unread, floating in the digital void as I moved forward with my life. The apartment I rented was small, but filled with sunlight. I decorated it with plants, books, and new memories. I went back to school, enrolling in classes that fueled a passion for learning I had neglected for too long. One quiet evening, as I sat on my little balcony with a cup of tea in hand, I deleted Mike's number from my phone. I was free to heal, free to grow, and most importantly, free to be unapologetically me. My name is Diana, and I grew up as the princess of a castle. My parents, bless their souls, had more wealth than some small countries, but they instilled in me the value of every penny. "Money talks, but wisdom listens," my dad would say, while my mom insisted I learn to budget before I even knew how to spell. My luxurious life felt like a fairy tale, until it shattered. At 12, a private jet crash turned my story into a dark reality. Overnight, my grandmother took me in, and we moved to a modest home far removed from the opulence I once knew. This new life was different, where luxury lay in love and care, not material possessions. My inheritance was a distant promise, locked away until I turned 25. So I adapted, learned, and thrived under my grandmother's guidance. College became both my escape and my grounding. That's where I met Alex. He was as far from my world as one could get. A scholarship kid with a heart of gold and a wit sharp enough to cut through any pretense. We clicked in a way I never expected. Bringing him home to meet Grandma was nerve-wracking. I hadn't told him about my money. "Better he doesn't know, at least not yet," Grandma advised, and I understood her wisdom. I wanted Alex to love me for who I was, not for my bank account. "Grandma, this is Alex," I introduced them, feeling my stomach knot. "Nice to meet you, ma'am," Alex said, extending his hand, which Grandma shook warmly. Sit," she urged, her eyes twinkling as she observed Alex's nervousness. "So you're the young man who's stolen my granddaughter's heart." Alex blushed, a sheepish grin spreading across his face. "Ah, I guess you could say that, ma'am." We sat down, and the conversation flowed more easily than I had dared hope. Grandma shared stories of my parents and my childhood that made Alex laugh and look at me with a warmth that swelled my heart. "You've got a good one here," Grandma said, nodding at me while looking at Alex. "Takes after her mother, strong and kind. But don't let her fool you. She's got a bit of mischief in her too." "I can see that," Alex chuckled, squeezing my hand under the table. The evening continued with laughter and shared stories, and Alex blended into our world as if he had always belonged. He even helped Grandma with the dishes afterward, and I felt certain I had made the right choice in bringing him into my life. As we walked out later, Alex turned to me, a serious look on his face. "Your grandma's amazing, you know. Hearing about your parents and your life makes me feel like I understand you more. I nodded, a lump forming in my throat. I'm glad, Alex. There's a lot more to me than meets the eye. He smiled and pulled me into a hug. I'm here for all of it, every layer. It doesn't matter what's in your bank account, it's you I care about. I hugged him back tighter than ever before, feeling a rush of trust. But I also knew the weight of the secret I was keeping, a delicate balance I hoped wouldn't tip. The ride to Alex's parents' house was quiet, filled with a silence thick enough to cut through. I could tell Alex was nervous, his grip tightening on the steering wheel. Are you sure you're ready for this? I asked, trying to break the ice. Yeah, just, my mom can be a bit much. Don't take anything she says to heart, okay? His attempt at reassurance fell short. As we pulled up to the grand, imposing house, my stomach twisted into knots. This was it, no turning back now. We barely made it through the door when Alex's mom, Gloria, made her entrance. Her eyes landed on me like laser beams, sizing me up in a way that made my skin crawl. So, this is the girl you've been hiding, she said, her voice as cold as the marble floors. Mom, this is Alex, he started, but Gloria waved him off. I know who she is. Come, let's sit. I've prepared some tea. Gloria's command was firm, and I felt compelled to follow her as she led us into a living room that felt more like a showroom than a home. Once the tea was served, Gloria wasted no time getting to the point. I hear you were raised by your grandmother. Must have been quite a humble upbringing, she remarked, the word humble dripping with condescension. I clenched my jaw, fighting to remain calm. It was my grandmother who taught me valuable life lessons, important things, not just fluff. Gloria smirked, her lips curling slightly. And your parents? Gone too soon, I hear. Tragic, really. How does one cope without proper guidance? Alex jumped in, clearly uncomfortable. Mom, that's enough. Let's not. It's okay, Alex, I interrupted, feeling the surge of defiance. Yeah, my folks are gone, and it was tough. But I got through it. It made me who I am. Gloria sipped her tea, her gaze unwavering. Interesting. And what about your future, dear? Any plans, or are you just riding along on my son's coattails? That's done. I took a deep breath, reminding myself why I was there. I've got plans, big ones. And I don't need to ride anyone's coattails to make them happen. The air was thick with tension, and I could feel it tightening around us. Alex, bless him, tried to change the subject. Mom, let's not do this. We're here to enjoy each other's company. Gloria set down her teacup with a deliberate slowness. I'm merely trying to understand the woman my son has chosen. You can't fault a mother for caring about her child's future. It felt like a never-ending tug of war where neither side was winning. Just when I thought I couldn't endure any more, Alex's sister, Lily, made her entrance. Her curious eyes held an edge of judgment that mirrored their mother's. So, you're the famous girlfriend. Heard a lot about you, though not all of it good, Lily said, her voice dripping with disdain. I opened my mouth to snap back, but Alex stood up. That's enough. Both of you, we came here in good faith to share a part of our lives with you. If you can't respect that, then maybe we should leave. The rest of the visit was painfully awkward. Conversations felt forced, and every laugh was a little too loud. Yet Alex held my hand under the table, a silent promise that we were in this together. As we left, I couldn't shake the mix of relief and frustration churning inside me. I'm sorry about that, Alex said once we were in the car. They can be a bit intense. I sighed as the lights of the house faded in the rearview mirror. It's not your fault, but man, your mom and sister. There's something else, I said, shaking my head. Alex let out a sad chuckle. Yeah, they are. But hey, we survived, right? Survived and stronger. I leaned my head against the window, looking up at the clear night sky filled with shining stars. Maybe it was a sign. No matter how tough things got, there would always be a way through. But the warning came swift and sharp like a slap to the face at our next awkward family gathering. Gloria, my future mother-in-law, wasted no time laying down the law. If you two are serious about getting married, we're getting a prenup signed, she declared, her eyes drilling into mine as if daring me to object. I kept my cool, shrugged, and replied, fine by me. I'm not after your son's money. I could see Alex shrink in his seat, looking as if he wanted to crawl into a hole and disappear. Once we were out of there, he was all apologies and promises. My mom will get in our way. I promise we'll be happy, he said, his eyes pleading for me to believe him. The wedding planning sailed along smoothly enough, But on the big day itself, that's when the storm hit. Lily, my soon-to-be sister-in-law, got more than a little tipsy and decided it was showtime right in the middle of our reception. She staggered to her feet, glass in hand, slurring accusations loud enough for everyone to hear. This one's a gold digger. Doesn't know the first thing about our kind of life. Illiterate, trying to snag my brother's cash. Her antics didn't stop there. She went on to harass guests with behavior that wasn't even fit for polite society. My face flushed with hot anger and humiliation. Without a second thought, I pulled out my phone and called the cops. This drama needed an audience, and I wasn't about to let Lily's performance go unchecked. The aftermath was a hurricane of accusations and threats. Gloria vowed revenge for the disgrace I had brought upon their family. You've made a mockery of us. The press will have a field day with my daughter's antics, thanks to you. Alex was caught in the middle, trying to play peacemaker in a war that had no room for neutrality. I saw the strain in his eyes and the way his shoulders sagged under the weight of his family's drama. He wanted to keep us afloat, but I stood my ground, my resolve hardening. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about drawing a line and refusing to let wealth, or the lack thereof, dictate how I was treated. As the dust settled and the night grew quiet, Alex and I sat amidst the wreckage of what was supposed to be our happiest day. I'm sorry, he whispered, but I could only think of how far we had to go. He whispered, his voice thick with unshed tears. I never wanted any of this. I took his hand, feeling the rough edges of our new reality. We'll get through this, but things need to change, starting with setting boundaries with your family. The vow we made that night wasn't just about staying together. It was about fighting for the respect we deserved and refusing to let old money or grudges define our future. 2 years slipped by since we said, I do, and those vows felt heavier with each passing day. Gloria practically vanished from our lives, and honestly, I didn't miss her one bit. But it wasn't just her absence that marked those years. It was Alex's changing attitude that really drove a wedge between us. He came home late, if at all, muttering excuses about work that never quite added up. The warmth we once shared cooled into mere courtesy. And eventually, even that faded. The tipping point came one night when he threw his jacket on the chair as it had personally offended him. You know, he said, I could have done better, married someone with a bit more class, more in line with my circle. His words stung like a slap, leaving me gobsmacked. I wanted to scream, to remind him of the fortune I had inherited, but Grandma's voice echoed in my head, urging me to be patient and to see Alex for who he truly was. So, I swallowed my truth and my hurt, biting back tears. I thought maybe, just maybe, if we had a child, it might bridge the gap between us, remind him of the love that brought us together. Alex, don't you think it's time we considered having a baby? I ventured one evening, hoping to ignite something in the man I once loved. His reaction was like a cold shower. A baby? Now, don't be ridiculous. We're not ready for that, not by a long shot. That conversation crushed me. It wasn't just his refusal. It was the disdain in his voice, the way he made it clear that what I wanted, what I thought could save us, was nothing but a foolish fantasy. Days turned into weeks, and those weeks into months of silence, living side by side but feeling more like strangers. Each rude remark, every late night, added another brick to the wall between us. I confided in Grandma, pouring my heart out over cups of tea that went cold before I could finish them. He's not the man I married, Grandma. I don't even know if he ever was. She listened, her eyes reflecting sadness and understanding. You can't make someone be who you want them to be, darling. Sometimes we see what we want to see until we can no longer ignore the truth. Her words, though heavy, carried a sliver of relief. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't asking for too much. I just wanted a partner, someone who saw me as an equal and respected me. But as the days passed, it became clear that Alex wasn't that person anymore, if he ever had been. The thought of leaving crossed my mind more times than I cared to admit, but every time it did, I pushed it away, hoping against hope that something would change, that the man I loved would find his way back to me. I went all out for Alex's birthday bash, hoping to reignite the spark in what had turned into a pretty mundane marriage. No expense was spared, and the guest list was a who's who of our closest friends. Notably absent were Gloria and Lily, my mother-in-law and sister-in-law. Their drama was the last thing I needed to ruin the night. For a moment, Alex was in high spirits, soaking in the adoration and well wishes from everyone. It felt like we were back in our honeymoon phase, surrounded by laughter and inside jokes. But that bubble burst the second Gloria and Lily crashed the party uninvited, clearly expecting to be welcomed. It turned out Alex had gone behind my back and invited them, hoping to avoid any family fallout. Their presence shifted the atmosphere, turning it tense. Lily, in true form, made a beeline for the drinks, dressed in an outfit that practically screamed, "Look at me," and not in a good way. Gloria's snide remarks flew under the radar, each one a veiled jab at me or our marriage. As the night wore on, Lily's antics escalated, fueled by champagne and a desperate need to be the center of attention. She launched into a rant about how I didn't fit into their family, how I was unworthy of their name. It was a mess, and Alex was nowhere to be found, too busy playing the good son to notice the circus unfolding around him. The climax of the evening came when Lily, a few sheets to the wind, decided to air out some dirty laundry. Waving around some documents, she slurred out insults, each word cutting deeper. The spectacle ended with her stumbling into the pool, documents flying everywhere, turning what was meant to be a celebration into chaos. I rushed over, driven more by curiosity than concern, and began gathering the scattered papers. My heart sank as I pieced together the truth. They were divorce papers signed by Alex. Each signature felt like a punch to the gut, a betrayal that left me numb. Standing there, the reality crashed over me. My husband, the man I had promised to spend my life with, had decided our journey was over without even a word. The party around me faded into a blur as I clutched the documents, Alex's signature glaring up at me, confirming what I didn't want to believe. This wasn't just a party to remember. It was the end of everything I thought we had. In the aftermath of the pool incident, I sought clarity amidst the chaos. My heart raced as I approached Alex, holding the soap documents that had unwittingly unveiled the truth I wasn't prepared for. "Alex, what's this about?" I demanded, my voice stronger than I felt as I thrust the divorce papers toward him. Before he could respond, his mother interjected, her smugness making my skin crawl. "Oh dear, looks like your little scheme didn't work out, did it? Alex is leaving you. You thought you could trap him with a baby for his money." I stared at Alex, searching his eyes for any trace of the man I married. But he couldn't meet my gaze. His silence spoke louder than words. With resignation, I signed the divorce papers. They were just a formality now, closing a chapter of a book I no longer wished to be part of. As the dust settled, Grandma approached, her presence a calming force. She didn't need to say anything. Her eyes conveyed volumes of empathy, understanding, and unspoken support that bolstered my resolve. Then she revealed the truth, not just to me but to everyone present. "She doesn't need any of your money," Grandma declared, her voice steady and strong. "In a month, she'll turn 25 and inherit a fortune far beyond what you could imagine. She's been raised to value people over wealth, to seek genuine connections rather than financial gain." The room fell silent, the weight of her words hanging in the air. Gloria's face shifted from smugness to shock, then to a desperate greed as she scrambled to backpedal, her apologies transparent and insincere. Alex, too, suddenly seemed eager to rewrite the narrative, insisting his intentions had never been to hurt me, that he was merely influenced by his mother. But it was too late. The veil had been lifted, revealing the stark reality of our relationship and the motivations behind it. I met their apologies with a quiet smile, not out of forgiveness, but from a newfound inner peace that came from understanding my worth, independent of the wealth that awaited me. "You've shown me your true colors," I said, my voice imbued with strength. "And as for surprises, well, I've prepared another one for you." At that moment, a loud honk echoed through the tension outside. A sleek luxury car rolled up to the gate, the one I had secretly bought for Alex as a surprise. The irony wasn't lost on me. I couldn't help but let out a bitter laugh as I excused myself to step outside and confront the final act of this drama. There it was, the epitome of luxury on four wheels. A symbol of the love I thought we shared, now just another piece in the game of pretense and betrayal. Without a second thought, I slid into the driver's seat, the leather cool and unyielding beneath me, much like my resolve. Grandma, ever my rock, joined me, her presence a silent testament to the strength and dignity that ran in our blood. Turning to face the house, I felt ready to take the next step. I spotted Alex and his mother at the door, their expressions a mix of confusion and disbelief. "From now on, everything goes through my lawyer," I called out, my voice clear and stripped of the warmth it once held. "And don't worry about my stuff. I'll have a courier pick it up." Their faces, once smug and self-assured, transformed into a portrait of realization and loss, not just of the wealth they coveted, but of the person they had underestimated. With that, I turned the key in the ignition, the car's engine purring to life, a sweet sound that promised freedom and new beginnings. Grandma and I exchanged a look, a silent agreement that this was the first step toward a future unburdened by deceit and manipulation. After the revelations and dramatic exits, the air felt clearer, as if the truth had not only exposed their greed but also cleansed the path ahead. It wasn't long before the first tests of my newfound resolve came knocking, or rather, calling. The phone rang, its shrill tones slicing through the calm like a knife. On the other end was none other than Lily, her voice dripping with an unfamiliar sweetness. "Hey, I just wanted to clear the air between us. We're practically the same age, right? We could be friends." I couldn't help but let out a short, disbelieving laugh. The contrast between her sugary tone and the disdain she usually exuded was striking. "Friends?" I echoed, the word feeling foreign. "You mean like how friends don't badmouth each other at parties or try to humiliate each other in front of everyone?" There was a pause, and I imagined the gears turning in her head as she searched for a response. "Well, water under the bridge and all that," she attempted feebly. "Water into the pool, you mean?" I shot back, unable to resist the jab. The silence that followed was telling. It was clear my refusal to play along had derailed her plans. "Fine, be that way," she snapped, her veneer of niceness crumbling. "You'll regret this." I hung up, feeling a mix of amusement and sadness, a stark reminder of the facades people wear and the lengths they'll go to when faced with the consequences of their actions. The temptation to retaliate lingered, a nagging thought in the back of my mind. I posted a video on social media of her falling into the pool, and it went viral like wildfire. Within an hour, 1,000 people had liked it. My sister-in-law became an internet sensation. She tried to call me, demanding I take it down, but I just blocked her. I was done with her fake sweetness and nasty attitude. A week later, my phone rang with a number I knew all too well. It was Gloria. Her voice was unnaturally sweet, offering an olive branch she hoped I would grasp. "Let's put the past behind us for Alex's sake. Can't we reconcile?" she suggested, as if the wounds were mere scratches that could heal with a band-aid of words. "No, Gloria, that ship has sailed," I replied, firm but not unkind. There was no anchor in my voice, only a resolute peace. "I wish Alex well, but our paths are diverging. I'm looking forward, not back." Not long after, Alex made his own attempts at reconciliation. One morning, I found a bouquet of flowers on my doorstep, the card bearing a simple, "I'm sorry. Please come back." The sight of them sparked more anger than affection. Without a second thought, I tossed them into the trash. His efforts didn't stop there. He showed up unannounced, hoping to talk things through, but I wasn't the same person he had left behind. His presence, once a source of comfort, now felt like an intrusion. One evening, as he made yet another uninvited appearance, I met him at the door with a resolve as hard as steel. "If you don't stop this, I'm going to the police," I warned, my voice steady and firm. "Your apologies can't undo what's been done. It's over, Alex. Really, it's over." The gravity of my words finally seemed to reach him. His shoulders slumped, and with one last lingering look, he turned and walked away. That was the last I saw of him. In the time that followed, I immersed myself in charity work. It became my passion and my purpose. Helping those truly in need and connecting with people who valued kindness over wealth brought me a joy I hadn't known I was missing. Living with Grandma, I found peace in our quiet routine. We'd sit together, planning our next project, our next way to make a difference. During these moments, I realized this was where I was meant to be. I had no illusions about the road ahead. It would be fraught with challenges, perhaps even heartache. But I also knew it would be filled with joy, moments of unbridled happiness, and the kind of love that enriches the soul. So I live my life looking forward, not back. I work, I help, and I hope. I believe in a future where I'll find true love, not defined by wealth or status, but by genuine connection. And yes, one day I'll have those 3 beautiful children I dream of. For now, though, I'm content, building a life of purpose surrounded by love that asks for nothing in return. This isn't just the end of a chapter, it's the beginning of a whole new book, and I'm the one writing it. Things have changed since Lily was born. I used to see Mark's face light up whenever I entered a room, but now I'm lucky to get more than a grunt before he dives back into his phone. His job hasn't changed. If anything, it's less stressful than before. But something in him switched off the day we brought her home. Another painting. That makes 3 this week. Mark's voice sliced through the air, sharp and critical, whenever he caught me setting up my easel. He used to admire my work. He even had my best piece framed in his office. Not anymore. It's not like I'm spending your money, I replied, trying to hide the tremble in my hands as I focused on mixing blues and yellows on my palette. Each word felt like a punch to my gut. Could have fooled me. Look at this place. It's a disaster, he snapped, scanning the room, his eyes zeroing in on every toy and blanket out of place as if they were evidence of my failures. I'm with Lily all day, and she's a handful. I fought back, my voice wavering. Maybe if you helped a little around here. Help with what? You're home all the time. You deal with it. That was our deal, remember? I make the money, you handle the rest. Not my fault you can't manage. He cut me off, leaving no room for argument. Every night ended the same way, with him turning away, dismissing me with a scoff. As he left for work, Lily would tug at the hem of my shirt, her little eyes wide with confusion. "Daddy mad?" she'd ask, her tiny lips quivering. "No, baby, Daddy just has a lot on his mind," I'd reassure her, pulling her into my arms and trying to smile for her sake. "Here, help Mommy choose the colors." Together, we'd paint, her laughter drowning out the bitterness in Mark's tone, creating a world of color that felt like a refuge. I knew my paintings were good, not out of arrogance, but because they were the last remnants of a time when I felt confident and vibrant. That evening, when Mark came home, I did what I always did, greeted him with a warm dinner, a clean house, and Lily, squeaky clean from her bath and dressed in her best pajamas. "Hey," I said, the aroma of roast chicken following me as I approached. "How was your day?" He grunted in reply, shrugging off his coat and tossing it onto the couch. His gaze caught mine, then fell on the easel in the corner of our living room. "Still haven't gotten rid of that junk, huh?" "It's not junk, Mark. I'm working on something," I responded, weariness seeping into my tone. "Looks like a waste of time and money. You could be doing something productive," he said, walking past me to the fridge without waiting for an answer. Productive, it seemed, meant anything that made money or made his life easier. I guess I was doing neither to his liking. "I'm doing something," I said, my voice firmer now. "I'm raising our daughter and trying to hold on to something that matters to me. My painting matters to me." He didn't even pause, just opened a beer and took a deep swig. "Call it what you want, Grace. To me, it looks like you're just filling time and making a mess. I'll have to pay someone to clean it up." The sting didn't come from the unkindness of his words. I was getting used to that. It came from the dismissal of my dreams and passion. There was no place for them in Mark's world anymore. "Dinner's ready," I called out, feeling like I was putting on a performance. I stood there with trembling hands as I served the meal. Mark's parents, seated like judges at the head of the table, barely noticing my effort to create a warm, hearty meal. Their eyes were fixed on the easel by the window. "What's this then?" Mark's dad, George, a broad man with a booming voice, jabbed a finger toward my unfinished painting. "Oh, that's just something Grace has been fooling around with," Mark chuckled, waving a dismissive hand before taking his seat. "Real high-class stuff, right?" Laughter rang out, but it felt like a knife cutting at my nerves, laughter that didn't reach their eyes. My, we have an artist now, do we?" Mark's mom, Patricia, chimed in, her voice sharp enough to slice steel. "Why don't you show us your latest masterpiece, dear?" George bellowed, his smile more of a challenge than a gesture of interest. I stood frozen in place, heat creeping up my neck. "It's not done yet," I muttered, but Mark was already striding over to the canvas, grabbing it with far less care than he'd use for a dish towel. "Look at this, folks." Mark laughed, flipping the canvas around like he was unveiling a letter on Wheel of Fortune. "It's supposed to be a landscape. Can you believe it?" George's laughter boomed again. "Looks like a blind dog's nightmare," Patricia tutted, shaking her head, her nostrils flaring with each derisive comment. "Why waste your time with this hobby? Get a job or do something, anything, productive. As if any place would hire me." Mark snorted, setting the painting back down with a thud that sank my heart. "The job market's tough out there, and well, look at her." I swallowed hard, my hands clenched into fists at my sides. "I do plenty. I take care of Lily and this house." My words faltered under their collective gaze. Patricia poked at the food on her plate with a fork, as if she suspected it might be poisoned. Taking care of your family is the least you can do, she sniffed. But honestly, Mark, if you'd married someone with a little ambition. They continued tearing into me, their words pressing down, squeezing the air from my lungs. I felt myself slipping away, becoming smaller and more insignificant in this grand performance of theirs. Something inside me snapped as soon as the meal ended. With a fiend smile, I excused myself, marched up the stairs without looking back, and locked myself in the bedroom. Grace, Mark called, his voice rising up the stairs about half an hour later. You coming back down? We need to clear the table. I did respond. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, a scream or a sob would escape, and I wasn't going to give them the satisfaction of witnessing my breakdown. I scrolled through my banking app, a frown deepening the lines on my face. Our account was looking dire again this month, and the grocery list wasn't getting any shorter. Lily needed new shoes too. She was sprouting like a weed. Grace, why is there a charge for $48.95 for Martin's art supplies? Mark's voice tumbled in from the living room. I just picked up a few things, I said, tapping through the app to transfer what little remained of my personal savings to cover it. I needed those supplies. Come on, Grace, that's money we could have put towards something important. His tone was flat, almost bored, but with an undercurrent of something else. Was it disappointment? Frustration? Art is important to me, Mark, the same way your golf is important to you. I did mention that his golf clubs cost more than a year's worth of my supplies. Yeah, but golf is networking. It's part of my job. What does your painting get us? A cluttered house and wasted cash? It gets me through the day, I murmured, feeling that familiar tug of war in my chest. Mark snorted. We have to be smart about money, not just spend it on whatever gets us through the day. Budget, Grace. That word felt like a choke chain. I pay for my art supplies with my own money I had before. My voice trailed off, not wanting to spark another fight. That money felt like a distant chapter, one that held job independence and a once shared dream of my own gallery. Your money's our money, isn't it? He shot back, the implication that my financial independence was a thing of the past evident in his tone. And that money is running out fast. Later, at the store, I opted for the cheaper brands, counting every cent, every compromise. I picked up the smallest tubes of paint, the ones I could slip into the cart without drawing any raised eyebrows. Back home, I unpacked the bags with robotic precision, each item a reminder of our tightrope walk over financial ruin. Putting back some luxuries, are we? Mark commented, his gaze landing on the no-name cereal and store-brand pasta. Yes, tightening the belt, I answered without looking at him, concealing the receipts, a paper trail of my crimes. He rummaged through the bags like an investigator searching for a slip-up. Where are the Greek yogurts you like? Isn't this the cheap coffee? I shrugged, busying myself with placing a can of tomatoes in the pantry. Prices went up, had to make some cuts. Don't see any cuts in your art budget, though, he said, his cold finger pointing out the new brushes I had tucked under a loaf of bread. I turned to him, finally meeting his gaze for the first time since the conversation started. This keeps me sane, Mark. My art keeps me sane. My voice was firm, and I clenched my fists around the countertop to stop the tremor in my hand. Well, sanity's quite the luxury item these days, isn't it? He said, nodding toward the brushes, his words deliberate and biting. That night, I painted not out of passion, but frustration. Each stroke felt like a challenge, a cut from our already strained budget to fit within Mark's expectations. But as I worked, I remembered a time when these brushes brought me joy, not the feeling of having to defend myself. Mark was somewhere across the country, tangled up in business meetings when he dropped the latest task on me. His voice buzzed through my phone, sounding distracted, as if he was already halfway out the door. Grace, you've got to put together a birthday present for my boss's wife, Clara. Her big day's in a week. Okay, do you have any cash set aside for that? I asked, squinting at our already tight budget displayed on my laptop screen. Nah, you figure it out, just make it look like we put some thought into it, he muttered, sounding preoccupied. Hang on, you want something nice, but I'm supposed to magic up the funds for it. I could feel heat rising in my cheeks. You always find a way to make it happen, Grace. With that cheerful little line, he was gone. I exhaled slowly, closing my eyes as I fought to push back the frustration gnawing at my last nerve. I didn't have the cash, but I needed something that would truly impress Clara. No pressure, right? After diving deep into her online world, it was clear she had a passion for art. Her feed was filled with gallery visits and photos of canvases that probably cost more than our car. She even posted pictures with artists talking about supporting the arts, patronage, and all that jazz. An idea sparked in my mind, and I grabbed it before it could slip away. A painting from me. I had the paints, I had the canvas, and I definitely had the motivation. I wanted to give Clara something unique, something you couldn't find on any high street. I let the concept settle in my mind, picturing the brush strokes and feeling the drag of bristles against canvas. It would be personal, and best of all, it would be free. Decision made. I knew I'd need every minute of every day if I wanted it to resemble the kind of art Clara admired. I pulled out my old easel, set it up in the living room, and got to work, all the while hoping my little slice of creativity would hold up in the high-stakes arena of business birthday gifts. Day 1. Operation Bombshell. I found myself standing in the middle of my makeshift studio, a corner of the dining room I cleared by pushing the table against the wall. The morning light streamed in, illuminating the chaos of art supplies scattered around. "Mommy, what's all this?" Lily, my 6-year-old, plopped herself right in the middle of the mess, her eyes wide as saucers, mirroring the splattered paint on the floor. "Mommy's making a birthday present, sweetie," I replied, rifling through old brushes with bristles stiffer than my back. "For a lady Daddy works with?" she asked, picking up a brush and examining the crusty edges like a little professional. I snatched the brush from her before it turned into a makeshift sword or fairy wand. "Yes, but I need it to stay nice," I explained. Lily furrowed her brow in confusion. "But why can't Daddy just buy something?" "Lily, go watch your cartoons, okay? I need to think." I wasn't ready to unpack the complexities of our bank account or my marriage with a kindergartner. Burbling something under her breath that sounded far too much like me, she trotted off to the living room, leaving me to my dilemma. The week dragged on, and I found myself pulling double shifts. Daytime mommy, nighttime Picasso. Slowly, the canvas began to fill, taking on a life of its own, something abstract, something that captured the whirlwind of my life lately. I didn't hear a peep from Mark, not a check-in call or even a text asking how things were going. I guess he was too wrapped up in his charts, deals, and whatever else was too important to bother his wife. Lily, on the other hand, was my tiny shadow, always creeping back to watch me paint. "You're really good, Mommy," she said. "Now on day 4. You should draw stuff more." I smiled. That was probably the best review I'd ever receive. "Think so, huh? Maybe I will." The night before the big reveal, the painting finally stared back at me, complete. It wasn't just art, it was everything I hadn't been able to say or do, all poured onto the canvas. But I couldn't sleep that night, tossing and turning, my thoughts spiraling. What if Clara hated it? What if Mark thought I'd wasted my time? Morning arrived clear and bright, and the painting was wrapped, not in fancy paper, just brown parcel paper, neatly tied with a bow made from Lily's hair ribbons. Why not? At the boss's wife's birthday bash, I held the package tightly, hoping the painting would be a hit. I slid through the crowd, eyes down, wishing I could blend into the wallpaper. Mark was there, just foaming hot from his latest trip, looking every inch the man who had it all, except the picture-perfect trophy wife. His eyes swept over the polished women in their cocktail dresses before landing on me, and it felt like a ton of bricks had dropped. I saw that look on his face as if he'd just bitten into a lemon. He glanced me up and down and shook his head just enough for only me to notice. The room faded slightly, like someone turned down the volume on the party, leaving me with the sound of my heartbeat pounding in my ears. Then his gaze zeroed in on a package cradled in my trembling hands. His eyes flashed, and oh boy, I recognized that look. I sensed the storm brewing before he even spoke. "What's that?" he spat, barely keeping his anger in check. I pulled the package closer as if I could shield it and myself from the impending fallout. "It's a gift. My painting," I said, my words barely hanging in the air before he cut me off. "A painting? You're kidding, right?" His voice was loud enough to catch a few glances our way. I tried to shush him with my eyes, but he was beyond caring. "You actually think it's okay to hand her a piece of amateur hour?" Whispers began to swirl around us, soft at first, but growing stronger. "Mark, please, not here," I begged, my cheeks burning. "Did you lose your mind?" he roared, and the room didn't just pause, it froze. "You're making us look like fools." By now, we were the main event. Eyes flicked to us, then away, then back again, as if they were watching a tense game of tennis. I shrank, wishing I could melt into the floorboards. Mark's face was a shade of red I'd only seen on traffic lights. Just great. Grace, he vented, throwing his hands up. You don't think, do you? The heat flooding my cheeks told me I was blushing, and not in a cute way. My hands shook, but I clutched the painting tighter. What else could I hold on to? I took a deep breath, trying to remember why I thought this was a good idea. Now everyone's going to have a go at us. Thanks to you and your dumb idea, he added, his words sharp as a knife, aimed at anyone pretending not to listen. My mouth opened, words ready to tumble out to defend myself or maybe just to tell him to shut up. But what could I say with the entire room's eyes burning into us? Instead, I just stood there, the fool, he called me, wishing the ground would swallow me whole. The laughter that followed Mark's outburst felt like daggers. Even as the room spun, I caught the boss's eye. He was watching quietly, confusion etched on his face. Clara wore a half-concerned, half-intrigued frown, which gave me a sliver of hope. She waved her hand, cutting through the noise. Quiet down, everyone. Let's see what Grace has brought. I moved on autopilot, my hands still jittery as they tore away the wrapping paper. The art spilled into the room, all the colors and shapes I had poured myself into for nights. Clara's eyebrows shot up. Oh my, she said, and the room hushed, waiting for her judgment. This is quite something, Grace. Mark was still fuming by my side. Yeah, something all right. I ignored him, searching Clara's face for any sign of approval. It's for you. Happy birthday. She tilted her head, studying the painting like it was a puzzle. It's bold. I like bold. Don't you, darling? She nudged Mark, pulling him into this. The boss was tough to read, but he nodded. Don't see something like that every day. Mark tried to jump back in. Oh, come on, you're saying you like this mess? Clara's voice snapped as she turned to him with a squint. Mark, I'd watch it if I were you. Your wife has talent, and I won't have you embarrass her any further. It's unbecoming. The room fell into a tense silence, the kind where you could hear a sneeze 3 houses down. Look at the colors, the feeling in it, Clara continued. Now it's got life. Mark attempted a save. Well, sure, if you like that sort of thing. But Clara cut him off. I do. It's decided. This goes right in the foyer. I blinked. Was this actually happening? You sure, babe? The boss chimed in. It's not exactly. Clara shot him a look, and he trailed off. Standard? Right, it's unique. She extended her arm toward me like a beacon in her high heels and overpriced suit. See? Thank you, Grace. This here's a real gift, folks. It's got soul. Just like that, the murmurs started up again. But this time, they were different. People were nodding, some even looking at me with what felt like respect. Clara still held my painting like it was a treasure, turning her eyes back to me. So, Grace, she said, drawing the room's focus, ever thought about showing your work in a gallery? Mark let out a scoff. I heard it, but my eyes were glued to Clara. Nah, who'd want to see my stuff? Don't worry, Grace, I would, and I know people. Clara's voice was firm, her eyes sharp. Mark tried to laugh it off. Come on, Clara, she's just dabbling. Clara quirked an eyebrow at him. So she dabbles better than some pros I know. What's it to you? I swallowed, feeling like I was teetering on the edge of something big. I don't know. I've never. What's to know? You jump in, I'll help. Clara's look was commanding, not asking. A nervous giggle slipped from my lips, wild-sounding even to my own ears. Sure. Good. It's settled, then. After that, whispers flitted around like moths to a flame. People who barely gave me the time of day were now hanging on my arm, talking about my work. It felt surreal, like walking through someone else's life. Mark was suddenly there again, his hand on my back, almost scalding. You're not serious about this, are you? There was an edge in his voice, like a knife threatening to cut. I turned to him, feeling the weight of the crowd and the pull of something new. Yeah, I am. My voice was stronger than it had felt in years. He looked at me, really looked at me for the first time that night. But what about us? What about us? I repeated. We've been over for longer than I want to admit. That shook him. He stepped back. I thought we were fine. I turned to face him fully. You thought wrong. The words were colder than I intended, but they needed to be said. Mark ran a hand through his hair, looking defeated. So what? We just end it. I glanced down at the color splash across my fingers at the rings that no longer meant what they were supposed to. We ended it a long time ago. Now we're just making it official. He didn't have anything to say to that. I watched him walk away, shoulders hunched. Clara's hand touched my shoulder. You okay, hon? I nodded. I am, thanks to you. She winked. What are friends for, right? And you, Grace, she paused, squeezing my shoulder. You're going to light up this town with your art. Just you wait. With that, I felt my heart start to hammer for a whole new set of reasons. Ahead of me, there wasn't just an ending. There was a beginning, painted in the boldest colors I could imagine. Lily and I. We'd be more than fine. We'd be us. Unapologetically, unfalteringly us. Lennox will share how I took control of my life and ended my husband Calloway's manipulative hold over me. For privacy, I'll be using fake names since it's important to remain anonymous, especially as a well-known lawyer in my state. I won't delve into all the details of how Calloway and I met, fell in love, and eventually divorced. What matters is that our love was never truly mutual. Calloway was unfaithful, and the signs were always there. He distanced himself, spent long hours away, and often went on business trips. Even though I had a successful career as a lawyer, Calloway always saw me as a failure simply because I didn't earn as much as him. One day, during one of his many trips, I made the decision to investigate. I found an old laptop of his and discovered a hidden Facebook account, which confirmed my worst fears. He was having an affair with a beautiful woman he clearly considered more attractive than me. Calloway constantly criticized my appearance, and it crushed me to realize he had chosen someone else. Angry and heartbroken, I confronted him the moment he returned. Calloway, are you cheating on me? I have proof, I demanded. His response was cold, almost cruel. Lennox, you just aren't interesting to me anymore. You're always wrapped up in your pointless cases, ignoring me. And let's be honest, you're not exactly a supermodel, he sneered. Stunned, I shot back, what are you even talking about? I have a demanding job and you knew that when we got married. I haven't ignored you. It's you who stopped coming home. You shut me out. That's how I uncovered the truth. But instead of guilt or regret, Calloway's heartless response left me speechless. He twisted everything, making it seem as though his infidelity was somehow my fault. A ridiculous claim I wasn't going to let him get away with. Rather than defend himself, Calloway's tone turned even colder. He smirked and said, I'm glad you found out, Lennox. Now I don't have to hide her anymore. She's gorgeous and we're going to have a perfect life together after I divorce you. Finally, I can marry someone worthy of my name. His words hit me like a punch to the gut. A chill ran down my spine as I realized he had been planning this all along. Worse, he was openly insulting me, praising this other woman as if she were the better choice. There was no apology, no remorse, only arrogance. He acted as though it meant nothing to him. Tears streamed down my face as he continued to boast about how he was going to leave me. This was the man I had loved for over a decade, and his cruel words shattered my heart. Through my sobs, I asked, how could you say that, Calloway? After all these years? I've stood by you through everything, I said, my voice shaking with a mixture of anger and hurt. I honored our vows and put you first, always. How could you do this? Calloway's expression remained cold and dismissive. It doesn't matter anymore, Lennox. You're just not right for me. I'm a successful business owner now, and I need someone who matches my status. A woman with average looks and a law degree that impresses no one just isn't good enough for me. Humiliated, I felt my chest tighten, but I refused to stay silent. How could you say that, Calloway? I may not fit your shallow definition of beauty, but I'm a strong, capable woman. I've been a good wife to you, and now you're throwing me away. Without hesitation, he cut me off, his voice cold as steel. I'm not considering divorce, Lennox. I've already decided. I hired a top lawyer, and the papers are ready. I'll be filing soon. You better pack your things and leave before I get back. I don't want to see your face around here anymore. A few hours later, one of Calloway's friends arrived at my door with a stack of papers in hand. His eyes held a flicker of sympathy as he passed them to me. I took the papers, closed the door, and collapsed to the floor. The weight of everything crashed down on me, and I sobbed uncontrollably for what felt like hours, realizing I had wasted years of my life on a man who never truly loved me. But as my tears dried, something shifted inside me. I wasn't going to let this defeat me. I was stronger than this, and I was going to prove it, to him and to myself. Before the man left, he let something slip. Calloway was planning to drag out the divorce. At first, I was confused, but then it hit me, the prenuptial agreement. If Calloway cheated, I was entitled to half of his business. In my emotional state, I have forgotten all about it. Now, it all made sense. He wanted to prolong the process, hoping I'd give up and walk away without claiming what was rightfully mine. That wasn't going to happen. I immediately reached out to his lawyer and scheduled a meeting. Within 2 days, I was ready to fight back, and I wasn't leaving without everything I deserved. I moved out of Calloway's house and returned to my childhood home, which was still in my name. Once everything was packed, I sent him a message. I've moved all my things out of your house. Don't worry, I took my ugly face and body out of your sight. His response came quickly, dripping with arrogance. Good. My lawyer is the best, so don't expect much from this fight. But I stayed calm. I'm not giving up my share of the business. Keep your distance from me, Calloway. I was done letting him manipulate me. This time, I would stand my ground and make sure he didn't get away with taking what was mine. I was ready for whatever battles lay ahead. His next text only fueled my determination. I don't want to talk to you anymore. Speak to me through my lawyer from now on, and make sure you stay out of my house. The disrespect and condescension in his words sparked a fire deep inside me. It's funny how rage and betrayal can give you strength. Suddenly, everything became crystal clear. I almost laughed. Calloway had no idea who he was messing with. Neither did his lawyer, Jake. I arranged to meet Jake at a local cafe. When I arrived, I saw the moment he recognized me. His composure faltered and his hands trembled slightly. Though he tried to act professional, it was obvious that Calloway had not prepared him to face someone like me. Jake forced a nervous smile as we greeted each other, and I decided to ease the tension. It wasn't his fault I was caught up in this mess. Hello, Jake. Nice to see you, I said pleasantly, watching the surprise flicker across his face. Ma'am, I wasn't expecting you to come in person, he stammered, clearly unsettled. The last names probably threw you off, I replied smoothly. I got married after becoming a lawyer. I use my maiden name for work. Oh, I see, Jake muttered, shifting in his seat, still visibly uncomfortable. Let's not dance around it, Jake, I said, leaning in slightly. Your client told you to drag this case out, didn't he? He squirmed under my steady gaze, unsure how to respond. I decided to give him a way out. You don't have to answer that. I've been married to Calloway for over a decade. I know exactly how his mind works. Jake fidgeted, trying to maintain his composure, but my words clearly hit home. Years of experience as a lawyer had taught me how to put pressure on opponents, and Jake was no exception. I wasn't here to intimidate him, though, just to make it clear that I wasn't someone to be underestimated. I leaned in slightly and gave Jake a reassuring smile. Look, Jake, I know none of this is your fault, so let me explain what's really going on with this divorce. He blinked, looking confused. What do you mean, ma'am? He asked, clearly not expecting what was coming next. Did Calloway happen to mention that he cheated on me? I asked, watching his face closely. His expression shifted, and I could see the truth dawn on him. He had no idea. No, he didn't mention anything about that, Jake admitted, flustered. But he did say you might try to make some wild claims to ruin him. I shook my head, giving him a sympathetic smile. Oh, Jake, Calloway played you. But hey, you'll be happy to know he really thinks you're one of the best lawyers out there. He has a lot of faith in you. Jake's smile was uncertain. That's kind of him to say, he murmured, clearly overwhelmed. But I'll never measure up to you, ma'am. I wish he had told me you were a lawyer too. He only said you worked at a firm. I rolled my eyes. Typical Calloway. He never appreciated my achievements. He always looked down on my work and never took me seriously. I paused, letting that sink in before adding, but I was smart enough to make sure we had a prenuptial agreement. Jake's eyes widened, clearly caught off guard. The word prenup hit him like a ton of bricks. He fidgeted in his seat, scrambling to process what I'd just revealed. There's a prenup in this marriage, he stammered, looking almost panicked. Your husband didn't mention that. Do you have any proof, ma'am? I gave him a calm, confident smile. Oh, I have all the proof you need. I pulled a folder from my bag and placed it gently on the table between us. I brought the documents with me. I figured Calloway would try to wriggle out of the consequences, but not on my watch. Jake swallowed hard, his hands visibly trembling as he reached for the folder. I'd really like to see those papers, ma'am, he said nervously. I'll need proof of the affair if you have any, Jake said, his voice cautious. Don't worry, I replied smoothly, opening my bag. I've got everything right here. I handed him all the evidence, messages, photos, legal documents. Everything was meticulously organized and ready. Jake took his time, reviewing each piece carefully. As he examined the evidence, I watched the defeat settle into his expression. He knew there was no way Calloway could come out of this unscathed. After what felt like an eternity, Jake looked up at me, resigned. "You have solid proof of everything, ma'am," he admitted. I had no idea about any of this. "I figured as much," I said, keeping my tone even. "I know how hard it is to deal with clients who aren't being honest, especially when the other side has a strong lawyer." "You're right about that, ma'am." Jake sighed, clearly weighed down by the reality of the situation. "I think that's all we need to discuss for now. I'll have to have a serious talk with my client before we proceed. Someone will be in touch, though I can't promise it'll be me." I knew what he was hinting at, but I didn't comment. Instead, I thanked him for his time and left the cafe. As I walked out, I felt an immense weight lift off my shoulders. The sadness that had once consumed me was now replaced by a fierce determination. I went straight to work, preparing my own set of documents for the divorce. Calloway had created this mess, and now he was going to face the consequences. There was no escaping what was coming. The very next day, Calloway broke the silence. Despite instructing him to contact me only through his lawyer, he called me directly. His voice was furious when I answered. "What did you say to my lawyer, Lennox?" he barked. I couldn't help but smile. "Oh, look who's calling me after telling me to stay away. What happened with your lawyer, Calloway?" "Stop messing around, Lennox. Tell me what you said to him that made him quit today." "Your lawyer quit today? How unfortunate," I said, dripping with sarcasm. "That's really too bad, Calloway. I guess you should have been honest about what you're up against, Calloway." "You don't know what you're talking about," he spat. "You're a nobody. I won't let you take my family business." "Oh, I'd love to see you try," I replied, my voice steady. "I'll hire a better lawyer than you ever could, and when we're done, you'll be the one begging me for mercy." "Well, good luck with that, Calloway," I said calmly. "Just a word of advice. Make sure you tell your new lawyer about the affair and the prenup." There was a pause, then the sharp click of him hanging up. I couldn't help but chuckle. He was in way over his head, and he didn't even know it yet. Calloway tried to find another lawyer, but word travels fast. My reputation in town was solid, and no decent lawyer wanted to be caught in his sinking ship. Anyone who entertained his lies would be swiftly dismantled once I laid out the evidence. He had promised to make me beg for mercy, but I knew it was only a matter of time before the tables turned. And I was right. One morning, as I was getting ready for work, a knock at the door interrupted me. It was early, and I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, there he was, Calloway, looking exhausted and utterly defeated. For a moment, I just stared at him, debating whether to send him away. But I let him in. I didn't want a scene outside my house. I had enough on my plate as it was. The moment the door closed behind him, I didn't bother with pleasantries. "Make it quick, Calloway. I don't have time to waste on you, and frankly, I have no idea why you're even here. We were supposed to handle everything through our lawyers." "Yeah, about that," he mumbled, eyes downcast, clearly embarrassed. "I haven't been able to find a good divorce lawyer yet," Calloway admitted, looking defeated. "Oh, that's unfortunate," I said with mock sympathy. "You'd better hurry. I hear Callista's been dying to marry you." "I'm not worried about her anymore," Calloway muttered, shaking his head. "Listen, Lennox, we need to talk. You've been sabotaging my chances with every lawyer. It's unfair." I burst out laughing, genuinely amused by his audacity. "Sabotaging you? Oh, Calloway, that's rich. The fact that you even think that just shows how little you respect me or my profession. You thought you could throw money at people and they'd fall at your feet, didn't you?" His face twisted with frustration. "I don't get it. What did I even do wrong?" I crossed my arms and stared him down. "Should I remind you? You lied to your lawyers about the affair, about the prenup. That's enough to embarrass any lawyer in court. No one wants to represent a client they can't trust, Calloway. And if you haven't realized by now, my name carries weight in this town. You might think I'm nothing, but I've built a reputation, a solid one." Calloway slumped, his shoulders sagging under the weight of realization. "I know that now, Lennox," he said quietly, regret dripping from his voice. "I tried being honest with a few lawyers, but none of them are willing to take my case." "Well, that's what happens when you're up against an ironclad prenup," I said coldly. "You should have thought twice before you cheated. But it's too late now. No sane lawyer is going to take your side, and you will give me half of your business." His face fell, and I could see the panic in his eyes. The business was the only thing he truly cared about. That's why he tried to hire the best lawyer he could, to drag this divorce out and exhaust me into giving up my claim. But now, after days of rejection, even he knew the game was over. Then, as if it were his last resort, Calloway did something I never expected. He started to cry. "Please, Lennox," he begged, his voice cracking. "You know how much this business means to me. Don't take it. Take everything else, just not the business." "Why not, Calloway?" I asked, my voice sharp. "You were the one who insisted on putting that clause in the prenup, the one that says I get half if you cheat. You wrote your own fate. After everything you've done, do you really think I'm going to walk away empty-handed? I deserve this." "It was a mistake, Lennox," he whispered, tears streaming down his face. "I swear, the affair was a huge mistake," Calloway pleaded. "I've even put the relationship on hold because I realized how wrong it was. Maybe we can give our marriage another shot. I'm sure we can make it work." I let out a loud, incredulous laugh. The audacity of this man was astounding. He was actually asking me to reconcile, as if I would be foolish enough to even consider it. I had heard the rumors that things between him and Calista weren't going well. Apparently, she was upset, and Calloway was unhappy too. But if he thought that was enough to win me back, he was out of his mind. I had learned my lesson the hard way. Marrying Calloway was a colossal mistake, and I wasn't about to make it again. I knew exactly why he was suddenly so desperate to get me back. "You must be delusional if you think I'd even consider it, Calloway. Do you think I'm stupid? I know you want me back just to avoid splitting your business." "Lennox, we were happy once. Can't we just look past this mistake and start over? I'll cut off Calista, I swear," he begged, trying to sound sincere. "There's no need for that, Calloway," I replied, shaking my head. "That woman will be gone the minute she finds out you won't be rich anymore after the divorce. As for me, this is my golden opportunity to walk away from this sham of a marriage. I'm actually grateful you showed me your true colors before we ever had kids. Now you're going to deal with the consequences of your actions." I was done. There was nothing left to say. Calloway continued to plead, trying to convince me not to take his business, but his desperate cries only reminded me of the countless nights I had cried myself to sleep because of his betrayal. Seeing him in such a pathetic state filled me with a sense of satisfaction. My revenge was complete. All I wanted now was a clean break to start fresh, and I got more than I expected. Karma hit Calloway hard and fast. For weeks, he tried everything to change my mind, begging me to come back home, but I ignored it all. I wasn't interested in his drama. I was ready to move on. Since he had already filed for divorce, I hired someone from my firm to represent me. I wasn't a divorce lawyer and wanted as little interaction with him as possible. After a month of futile attempts to win me back, Calloway realized he had no choice. He was forced to hire a lawyer and agree to a clean break. He knew that if this went to court, he'd be publicly humiliated and waste even more money on legal fees. So he conceded to a mutual divorce. Thanks to the prenup, it was easy for me to get the settlement I deserved. I had ample proof of Calloway's infidelity, and as the prenup stated, he had to give me half of his business. Of course, he wasn't happy about it, but there was no way out. Reluctantly, he signed over half of his company to me. We even offered him a chance to buy me out, but he had no money left. You might wonder how a big business owner like Calloway ended up broke. It's simple. He spent it all on Calista. The irony was delicious. She wasn't taking his calls or texts anymore. As she figured out he wouldn't be wealthy after the divorce, and now no one else was willing to date her either. Her reputation as a gold digger had spread far and wide. What goes around comes around, right? But Calista was the least of Calloway's problems. With half of his business gone, his income was slashed. He couldn't afford to maintain his lavish mansion or even keep up with the mortgage, so he was forced to sell it. Now, he was renting a condo, a serious downgrade from the luxurious life he once had. He even tried to get back with me again, hoping to regain control of his business. But that was never going to happen. He would have to figure out a way to keep things afloat or save enough money to buy me out. As for me, I was thriving. I hired someone to manage my share of Calloway's business, and everything was running smoothly. With the extra income from both the business and my law practice, I upgraded my lifestyle and bought myself a new mansion. I was living my best life, and honestly, I couldn't be happier. The divorce worked out perfectly for me. Instead of being played by Calloway and his Calissa, I ended up turning the tables, ruining their lives and bettering my own.